Welcome to my YouTube channel, Heardbreak Chronicles, a place where you will hear a large number of fascinating and intriguing chronicles about hearts that are completely broken by female betrayal. Let's not drag on for long. Let's get straight to the point. I was sitting in a business meeting when I got a text that changed everything. It was a photo of my car in a parking lot with Amanda and Dylan in it. I left the meeting early, heart racing, and drove there, only to catch them in my own car, caught red-handed in a betrayal so twisted it felt like a nightmare. That moment marked the end of my trust, but the beginning of a lesson they would never forget. Plot overview. Adam, the narrator, a successful 45-year-old restaurant chain owner. Loyal, strong-willed, and deeply in love with Amanda, until her betrayal cuts him to the core. Amanda, a 50-year-old powerhouse businesswoman. Charismatic and charming, but hiding a darker side. Dylan, Adam's 19-year-old son from his first marriage. Reckless, charming, and caught in a web of bad decisions. The story builds from a seemingly perfect life into a tangled web of deceit, emotional chaos, and revenge. Hi, Reddit. I never thought I'd be telling my story here, but life has a funny way of humbling you. I'm Adam, 45, owner of a successful chain of restaurants. I've worked hard for everything I have, and for a while, it felt like life was finally rewarding me for my efforts. I had a beautiful partner, Amanda, and a son, Dylan, from my first marriage. For 2 years, I believed I had it all. A thriving business, a loving relationship, and a son finding his way in life. Amanda and I met at a charity event in downtown Nashville. She was captivating, smart, confident, and in total control of her world. At 50, Amanda was a powerhouse businesswoman who had reached the top of her field. She had that magnetic charm that made people gravitate toward her. I fell for her fast, and before I knew it, we were inseparable. She seemed perfect in every way, supportive of my business, kind to Dylan, and an amazing partner. Dylan, my 19-year-old son, was your typical college freshman. A little reckless, a little too cocky, but a good kid at heart, or so I thought. I raised him to be independent and to always face life head-on. He spent more time at my place after Amanda moved in, and I was glad they got along. I figured it would be good for Dylan to have a strong role model like Amanda around. Life was smooth for a while, almost too smooth. My business was booming, and Amanda was always by my side at events, helping me grow my network. We were that couple people admired, the kind that made others say, "They've got it all figured out." Dylan had started working part-time at one of my restaurants, which gave us even more time together. But you know how they say hindsight is 20/20? Looking back, there were signs I missed, small things that should have set off alarm bells. It started with late-night texts. At first, I didn't think much of it. Amanda's work often required her to answer emails and messages at odd hours. But then I noticed her phone screen lighting up more frequently, texts that she quickly swiped away or responded to with a sly smile. One night, I asked, "Who's texting you so late?" "Oh, just a colleague," she said with that charming smile of hers. "They're a bit demanding, but it's nothing important." I trusted her. After all, trust is the foundation of any relationship, right? But over the next few weeks, the feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. There were other things, little changes that, on their own, wouldn't mean much. Amanda started dressing up more when she was just running errands. She seemed more distracted when we spent time together. Dylan, too, started acting differently, quieter, more reserved. At first, I thought it was just stress from school or adjusting to working part-time. I even told Amanda, maybe we should take Dylan on a trip, get him out of the city for a bit. He's been a little off lately. Amanda nodded, but something about the way she avoided eye contact gnawed at me. Then came the first real clue. I had a meeting at one of my restaurants downtown and decided to leave early to surprise Amanda. I figured we could grab lunch together. When I got home, the house was quiet. I called out, "Amanda? You home?" No answer. I walked into the bedroom and saw something strange. Amanda's favorite bracelet on the nightstand and a pair of sneakers that weren't hers. Dylan's sneakers. For a split second, my mind tried to justify it. Maybe Dylan had just dropped by and left them there. Maybe Amanda had taken her bracelet off while cleaning. But something didn't sit right with me. My pulse quickened as I pieced together how often Dylan had been around lately. How Amanda always seemed to be in a rush to leave when I got home early. My gut was screaming at me that something was wrong, but I pushed the thoughts aside. Surely, Amanda and Dylan wouldn't. No, I was just overthinking. The next few days were a blur of suspicion and doubt. I watched both of them more closely. Amanda was still her charming, confident self, but there were moments when I caught her glancing at Dylan with a look I couldn't quite place. Like there was some unspoken connection between them. One Friday night, I came home early again. Amanda was in the kitchen cooking, and Dylan was sitting at the counter. They both looked up at me at the same time, and for a split second, it felt like I'd interrupted something. Amanda smiled brightly. "Hey, honey, you're home early," she said, wiping her hands on a towel. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "Thought I'd join you two for dinner." The tension was palpable. Dylan barely said a word throughout dinner, and Amanda kept glancing at him nervously. I tried to shake it off, but the feeling in my gut grew stronger. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I needed to know the truth. What happened next would change everything. I had no idea how deep the betrayal went, but I was about to find out in the most brutal way possible. When suspicion starts creeping into your mind, it's hard to shake it. Every glance feels loaded. Every conversation feels like it's hiding something. That's where I was, caught in a web of my own doubts, desperately hoping I was wrong. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The night after that awkward dinner, I couldn't sleep. My instincts told me to dig deeper, to stop ignoring the red flags. So, I did what I thought I'd never do in a relationship. I checked Amanda's phone. I waited until she was in the shower. Her phone was on the nightstand, unlocked, and practically calling out to me. I hesitated for a moment, telling myself it was wrong, that I was being paranoid. But curiosity and fear got the better of me. The first few messages seemed normal. Work-related chats, texts with friends, nothing out of the ordinary. But then I saw a message thread labeled D. My stomach dropped. Dylan. The messages started out innocent enough, jokes, memes, casual updates. But as I scrolled further back, the tone changed. Dylan, last night was risky. You think he noticed? Amanda, no. He doesn't suspect a thing. Just be careful. Dylan, can't wait to see you again. Same time tomorrow. Amanda, of course. I'll make sure he's out. My hands started shaking. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. I kept scrolling, hoping there was some logical explanation, but it only got worse. Flirty messages, inside jokes I didn't understand, and photos that made me want to throw her phone across the room. I could barely breathe. My wife, the woman I thought was my partner, my rock, was sneaking around behind my back. And with my own son, I put the phone down just as Amanda stepped out of the bathroom. She smiled at me, completely oblivious to what I'd just seen. "Everything okay?" she asked, drying her hair with a towel. I forced a nod. "Yeah, just thinking about work." Inside, I was boiling. I wanted to confront her right then and there, to shout, to demand an explanation. But something held me back. I needed to be smart about this. I needed proof, real proof. If I confronted her now, she'd just deny it, twist the truth, and make me feel like I was the crazy one. I decided to wait, to watch, and to catch them in the act. The next day, I left for a meeting downtown but parked a block away from the house instead. My heart was pounding as I sat there, watching the front door from my car. I felt like a detective in a bad crime movie, but I needed to know the truth. First, nothing happened. The house remained quiet, the blinds drawn. I started to second-guess myself. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was all a misunderstanding. But then, around noon, I saw Dylan's car pull into the driveway. He got out, glanced around nervously, then walked straight into the house. No knock, no hesitation. My blood boiled. I waited for 15 minutes, my fingers gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Then I got out of the car and walked toward the house. I didn't even care if they heard me coming. My pulse was racing, my mind filled with every worst-case scenario. When I opened the door, the house was eerily quiet. "Amanda? Dylan?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. The bedroom door was closed, but I could hear faint whispers on the other side. My heart felt like it was going to explode out of my chest. I pushed the door open without knocking. There they were, Amanda and Dylan, standing way too close, their faces a mix of shock and panic. They jumped apart like guilty kids caught stealing from a cookie jar. "Adam," Amanda stammered, her face turning pale. "It's not what it looks like." I raised an eyebrow, crossing my arms. "Really? Because it looks exactly like what I think it is." Dylan couldn't even look me in the eye. "Dad, I can explain." "Don't," I said, my voice cold and steady. "You've already said enough." The silence was deafening. Amanda opened her mouth to speak again, but I cut her off. "You think I'm stupid?" I said, my voice rising. "You've been sneaking around behind my back with my own son. Do you even understand what you've done? How twisted this is." Amanda's eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. I wasn't falling for her crocodile tears this time. "I trusted you," I said, my voice cracking with anger and hurt. "I welcomed you into my home. I thought we were building something real." She reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back. "It's over," I said, my voice like ice. "Both of you, out of my house. Now." The next few minutes were a blur. Amanda tried to explain, but I wasn't listening. Dylan mumbled something about making a mistake, but I didn't care. I was done. As they packed their things and left, I stood in the doorway watching them go. Part of me wanted to break down right then and there, but I couldn't. Not yet. There was still too much to process, too many emotions to untangle. I didn't just lose a wife that day. I lost my trust in people, my faith in the relationships I'd built. But this wasn't the end. Not even close. When they walked out of the house that day, you'd think that would be the end of it. But it wasn't, not by a long shot. Betrayal that deep doesn't just vanish the moment the door closes. It lingers, festers, and transforms you into someone you never thought you'd become. As I stood in the doorway, watching Amanda and Dylan leave, I felt a cocktail of emotions. Anger, sadness, disbelief. But above all, I felt a burning desire for justice. Not the kind you get from a courtroom, but something far more personal. I wasn't just going to let them get away with this. Not without consequences. For the first few days, I stayed silent. Amanda texted me, called me, even left voicemails begging to talk. But I ignored every one of them. Dylan didn't even try. Smart kid, he knew better. I needed time to think, to plan my next move. I replayed everything in my mind. Their secret messages, the way they acted when I caught them. The nerve they had to do it under my roof, right under my nose. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was calculated, deliberate. They thought they could outsmart me. Big mistake. The first step in my plan was to dig deeper. I wasn't content with just what I saw in those text messages. I needed to know how long this had been going on and how far it went. I reached out to a friend of mine, Sam, who works in cybersecurity. I told him what happened and asked for his help. Within a day, Sam managed to retrieve deleted messages from Amanda's phone and emails. What I found made my blood run cold. It wasn't just a fling. It had been going on for months. They'd met up at hotels, restaurants, even in my own car while I was at work. There were messages detailing every twisted plan to keep their affair hidden, laughing about how clueless I was. One message stood out above the rest. "Dylan, it's almost exciting, sneaking around. He'll never figure it out. Amanda, even if he does, I'll handle him. Adam's not as sharp as he thinks." I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles turned white. Not as sharp as I think? We'll see about that. I started laying the groundwork for my revenge carefully and methodically. My plan wasn't just about exposing them. It was about hitting them where it would hurt the most. Step 1, ruin their reputations. Amanda had built her career on her image. A strong, respectable businesswoman admired by her peers. Dylan, on the other hand, was just starting his life with plenty to lose. I wasn't going to destroy them physically, but socially? That was fair game. I began gathering every piece of evidence. Texts, photos, videos, and compiling it into a neat little package. Then I sent it anonymously to key people in Amanda's professional circle. Business partners, board members, anyone whose opinion mattered. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. The first sign that my plan was working came about a week later. Amanda showed up at my restaurant, eyes red from crying, practically begging for me to talk to her. "Adam, please," she said, blocking the doorway to my office. "You've made your point. Can we just talk?" I folded my arms, staring at her with cold detachment. "Talk? About what? How you betrayed me with my own son? Or how you thought you were smarter than me?" She flinched at my words, but I wasn't done. "You did this to yourself, Amanda. Actions have consequences. I'm just making sure you feel them." Tears streamed down her face. "It was a mistake. I wasn't thinking straight. I love you, Adam." I laughed bitterly. "Love? If this is your version of love, I'll pass. You didn't just hurt me. You blew up my family, my trust, everything I believed in. And you did it without a second thought." She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "It's over. Go deal with your mess. It's not my problem anymore." After she left, I leaned back in my chair, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Part of me missed the life I thought we had, but another part, the stronger part, was glad it was gone. I didn't want a life built on lies. But Amanda's fall was only half the plan. Dylan wasn't off the hook either. I waited until he texted me. A carefully worded message asking for a chance to talk, saying he regretted everything and wanted to explain. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near campus, but this meeting wasn't for reconciliation. It was for clarity and to deliver the next blow in my plan. Dylan showed up looking nervous, his usual cocky demeanor replaced with something closer to shame. "Hey, Dad," he said, sitting down across from me. "Thanks for meeting me." I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. "Talk," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Look, I messed up. Big time. I wasn't thinking. It just happened. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you." I studied him for a long moment. "You never meant to hurt me? Dylan, you had a relationship with my wife for months. You knew exactly what you were doing. Don't insult me by pretending this was some accident." He looked down at the table, speechless. Good. It was about time he stopped talking and started listening. "Here's the deal," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I've already taken care of Amanda. Her reputation? Gone. Her career? Hanging by a thread. But you're lucky you're my son. I'm not going to destroy your future, but you'll have to live with this. And trust me, I won't forget it." Dylan nodded slowly, his face pale. "I understand." "Good," I said, standing up. "We're done here." I walked out of that coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in weeks. It wasn't a clean ending, far from it, but it was the closure I needed. Amanda and Dylan thought they could outsmart me, but in the end, they underestimated the power of a man with nothing left to lose. And this was just the beginning. Revenge is supposed to feel sweet, right? At least that's what I told myself when I walked out of the coffee shop after confronting Dylan. I had planned every step with precision, ensuring Amanda's professional world crumbled, and making sure Dylan understood the weight of what he had done. But when it was all over, I felt something I hadn't anticipated: emptiness. In the days that followed, I realized something no one warns you about. Revenge doesn't always bring peace. Sure, it felt good in the moment, but it left a hollow space inside me. My life, once so carefully built, was now a pile of broken pieces. I couldn't help but replay every moment in my mind. The warning signs I missed, the nights I trusted Amanda implicitly, and the countless times Dylan stood in front of me with a lie on his lips. Each memory cut deeper than the last. For the first time in years, I found myself avoiding my restaurant. I had no energy to face the staff, no desire to talk about the latest business trends or profit margins. Instead, I stayed home, drowning in my thoughts. The house was eerily quiet without Amanda's presence. Even after everything, part of me missed the version of her I thought I knew. The worst part was the betrayal from Dylan. How could my own son do this? I had raised him, taught him right from wrong. I had been there for him through every scraped knee, every late-night homework crisis, every heartbreak. And this was how he repaid me. One night, I sat on the couch, a glass of whiskey in my hand, scrolling through old photos on my phone. There was a picture of us, me, Amanda, and Dylan, at a 4th of July barbecue just last summer. We were smiling, arms wrapped around each other like a perfect little family. It made me sick. I threw the phone onto the coffee table and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. What the hell happened to us? After a week of isolation, I decided enough was enough. I wasn't going to let this betrayal define me. I needed to reclaim my life, to build something new from the ashes. But first, I needed closure. Amanda was still texting me, leaving voicemails, begging for a chance to explain. Up until that point, I had ignored her. But now, I needed to hear it from her lips. Not because I believed she had a good excuse, there was no justification for what she did, but because I needed to know how she thought she could get away with it. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. Amanda looked different. Tired, worn down. Her usual confident air was gone, replaced with something closer to desperation. "Adam," she said softly as I sat down. "Thank you for meeting me." I said nothing, just folded my arms and stared at her, waiting. "I don't even know where to start," she said, her voice trembling. "I messed up. I know that. I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to apologize for. But I want you to know, it wasn't planned. It wasn't something I set out to do." "Really?" I said, raising an eyebrow, because those messages seemed pretty well planned to me. Amanda looked down, twisting her hands together. "It got out of hand. At first, it was just harmless flirting. I didn't think it would go any further. But then, I don't know, I felt lost. I was dealing with a lot, work stress, turning 50, feeling like I was losing my sense of who I was. And Dylan, he made me feel young again." I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around the edge of the table. "You destroyed our family because you wanted to feel young again?" Amanda flinched at my words, but I didn't stop. "Do you have any idea what you've done? To me? To Dylan? To us?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "I know, Adam. I know I ruined everything. If I could go back, I would give anything to fix this." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But I knew better than to fall for her tears again. "There's no fixing this," I said quietly. "We're done. You made your choice, and now you have to live with it." I left Amanda sitting there, tears streaming down her face, and walked out into the cool evening air. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could finally breathe. The chapter with Amanda was closed. There would be no second chances, no rebuilding what we had. But there was still one piece of the puzzle left, Dylan. Later that week, I called Dylan and asked him to meet me at the house. When he arrived, he looked nervous, his hands shoved into his pockets. "Look, Dad," he started. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I don't even know how to begin apologizing." I held up a hand to stop him. "I'm not interested in apologies right now, Dylan. What I want to know is why. Why did you do it?" He looked down, struggling to find the words. "I don't know. I was stupid. I guess I liked the attention. Amanda, she made me feel important, like I wasn't just your kid trying to live up to your success. I didn't think about the consequences." I shook my head, my heart aching. "You didn't think about the consequences? You didn't think about me? About what this would do to our family?" Dylan swallowed hard. "I know. I messed up. I can't undo it, but I want to make things right. I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "It's going to take time, Dylan. A lot of time. Right now, I need space. We both do." He nodded slowly. "I understand." As he left, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. I wasn't ready to forgive him, not yet. But at least now, there was a sliver of hope that we could rebuild something in the future. For now, though, I needed to focus on myself. It was time to let go of the past and start fresh. After Amanda and Dylan were out of my life, or at least at a safe distance, I realized just how much of myself I had lost in the chaos. My business had taken a back seat to my personal drama, my friendships had been neglected, and I had been living in survival mode for months. It was time to change that. It was time to rebuild. Not just my life but me. I threw myself back into work, not just as a distraction but as a way to reclaim the passion I'd once had. My restaurants had always been more than just a business. They were my creative outlet, my way of bringing people together. I spent the next few weeks visiting every location, talking to staff, tasting the food, and finding ways to improve the experience. Felt good to be back in control. One Friday afternoon, I was sitting in one of my newer locations, reviewing some numbers, when I ran into Sarah, an old friend from my early days in the restaurant business. We hadn't seen each other in years, but the moment we started talking, it felt like no time had passed at all. "Adam," she said, smiling warmly, "you look different, lighter somehow. What's your secret?" I chuckled, shaking my head. "Let's just say I've recently cut a lot of dead weight out of my life." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like there's a story there." "There is," I said, leaning back in my chair. "But it's a long one. Let's just say I've learned a lot about betrayal and how to bounce back from it." "Well, you've always been resilient," Sarah said, her eyes sparkling. "It's good to see you getting back on your feet." We exchanged numbers, promising to catch up soon, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely excited about something. The weeks that followed were filled with small victories, reconnecting with old friends, diving deeper into my work, and rediscovering the things that made me happy. I started going to the gym again, cooking at home instead of ordering takeout, and even picking up hobbies I hadn't touched in years. It wasn't just about moving on. It was about taking back control of my life. One day, as I stood in my kitchen, cooking a recipe my grandmother used to make, I caught myself smiling. It hit me then I was happy again. Not because of anyone else, but because I had finally found peace within myself. But life, as it often does, had one more twist in store for me. About a month after my last conversation with Dylan, I got a call from him. His voice was hesitant, but there was something different about him. Something genuine. "Dad," he said, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about trust and consequences. I'm not expecting you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I've been seeing a therapist. I'm trying to figure out why I did what I did, and how to make sure I never hurt anyone like that again." I was silent for a moment, processing his words. Part of me wanted to stay angry, to hold onto the pain as a shield. But another part, the father in me, was proud. Proud that he was taking responsibility, that he was trying to change. "I appreciate you telling me that, Dylan," I said finally. "It's not going to be easy, but it's a start. Keep doing the work and maybe over time we can rebuild something." Our relationship wasn't magically healed in that moment, but it was a step forward. And that was enough for now. As for Amanda, she had tried to contact me a few more times, but I kept my distance. She was part of my past. A chapter 1 had closed for good. I didn't need her explanations or apologies anymore. I had found closure in my own way. In the end, I learned that life doesn't always give you neat, happy endings. Sometimes it gives you something better, growth. Betrayal had broken me, but it had also forced me to confront the parts of my life I had ignored for too long. It made me stronger, more self-aware, and ultimately more grateful for the people who truly mattered. I had my business, my friends, and slowly but surely my son. And most importantly, I had myself back. If you had told me a year ago that my life would unravel in the most brutal way imaginable, I wouldn't have believed you. I had everything. A successful business, a beautiful home, a relationship that seemed solid, and a son I was proud of. But life has a way of testing you when you least expect it, forcing you to confront truths you'd rather ignore. The journey back from that betrayal wasn't easy. There were days I felt like giving up, moments where the weight of what had happened seemed too much to bear. But here I am now, stronger, wiser, and finally at peace, rebuilding my life. The restaurant business was my first love, and it became my saving grace. I spent months pouring every ounce of energy into expanding and refining my brand. I launched a new line of farm-to-table menus, partnered with local suppliers, and revamped several locations to give them a fresh, modern feel. The community noticed. Customers who had been with me from the start sent messages of support, telling me how much they loved the new direction. Business was booming, but more importantly, I felt alive again. I also reconnected with Sarah, the friend I had run into weeks earlier. Our catch-ups became more frequent, evolving into something more than friendship. She was different from anyone I had ever known. Honest, kind, and completely real. We took things slow, but for the first time in a long while, I felt what it meant to be truly seen and appreciated. There were no games, no hidden agendas, just two people learning how to trust again. The road to forgiveness. My relationship with Dylan was complicated, to say the least. After our conversation about therapy, we started meeting for coffee once a week. At first, it was awkward, filled with long silences and cautious words. But over time, we found our rhythm again. He told me about the work he was doing in therapy, about how he was starting to understand the deeper issues that had driven his actions. He owned up to everything, never once making excuses or trying to shift the blame. It wasn't easy, but little by little, I found myself letting go of the anger. Not for his sake, but for mine. Holding on to that much pain was exhausting, and I was tired of carrying it around. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and it didn't mean everything went back to how it was before. It meant accepting what had happened and choosing to move forward anyway. The final lesson. Looking back, the biggest lesson I learned was this: you can't control what people do to you, but you can control how you respond. I could have let Amanda and Dylan's betrayal destroy me. I could have become bitter, closed off, and unwilling to trust again. But what kind of life would that have been? Instead, I chose to rebuild. I chose to focus on what mattered: my business, my real friendships, and the parts of myself I had neglected for too long. And in the end, I'm grateful. Grateful for the strength I didn't know I had, for the people who stood by me, and for the chance to start fresh. One night, months after everything had settled, I stood in the kitchen of my flagship restaurant, watching the place buzz with life. The smell of fresh bread filled the air, laughter echoed from the tables, and the staff moved like a well-oiled machine. Sarah walked in carrying 2 glasses of wine. She handed me one and raised hers in a toast. "To new beginnings," she said, smiling. "To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. In that moment, I realized something I never thought I would. The betrayal that nearly broke me had become the catalyst for the best chapter of my life. I didn't just survive, I thrived. And that's something no one could ever take away from me. Thank you very much for listening to this story to the end. I hope you liked. We work for you, looking for and telling you the most effective stories about women's betrayal, shocking intrigue, interweaving the plot and unexpected reactions of angry men. Save us, put likes, write comments, and, of course, subscribe to the channel to not miss any story.